penguins, ranging from 40-inch emperor penguin down to hairy penguin. All of them only places in the southern hemisphere, but not all are from the Antarctic. One lives on Antarctica, and others are found off the coast of southwest Africa and Australia and New Zealand, acting as the pack ice that guards that great frozen scope. During the hard frozen winter, scientific expeditions can live on the South Orkney Islands, but the penguins are far away on the fringe of the ice where they can dive into the sea and feed on shrimp. Here on land, the Falkland Islands Dependencies survey expedition waited during the winter for the return of the penguins to the breeding grounds in spring. In October, the beginning of the Antarctic spring, the Adelie Penguins have started their long journey direction toward the land. Adelie penguins have two means of locomotion on land, walking and tobogganing, propelling themselves with the feet and using the flippers as well. There is a steady stream of arrivals. Sometimes the parties are large, sometimes just a handful. Here's easy travel. At last, in sight of land, these Adelies are completing their journey from their winter quarters in the pack ice. This may be anything from 30 to 60 miles, actually as much as 60 miles. Homing ability of these little flightless birds, no more than 18 inches high, is remarkable, for they always return to the colony where they have bred places, avoiding the dips where the snow lies deep. Our party is now walking into a little corner of a vast colony, which when fully occupied will number 20,000 birds. Some colonies may even hold 1 million penguins. Yet by marking samples from these populations, it has been proved that Adelie penguins will return to exactly the same site and nearly always keep the same mate. One must live among them, not far from the colony. The husky dogs were used to transport stores from the British expedition's base 2.5 miles away. It's arrived at the breeding a long period of display called the ecstatic display. It is made only by the male. The ecstatic display rules other males, attracts females to the nest if the bird has no mate. Here's the same display and sound made by the chin-strap penguin, which nests in colonies alongside the Adelie. Not a very glamorous sound. Fights are frequent at this time of year, usually between young birds who fight for territory and for mates. There they go, hammer and tongs, battering each other with their flippers and jabbing with their bills. The nest is built of stones. One bird guards the nest while the other searches. Scram! It will have to return to its mate without a stone. Here it comes again, searching well away from other nest sites. This is an energetic bird. willing to travel far to get nest material claimed by no other and bring it back to drop by its mate. But this one simply steals a stone from a neighbor's nest. It is not until about 3.5 weeks after the birds walked in over the sea ice that their 2 eggs are laid. During this time, both male and female have been fasting. The male now takes charge of the eggs while the female prepares to go off to sea to feed. But before she goes, she has a little duty to perform. Aren't they wonderful birds? The way they walk reminds us so much of ourselves. She's collecting a few extra stones to make sure the nest is well built up above the level of the surrounding snow or thaw streams. Here she is again with another stone, and so it goes on until she is satisfied. The male is now alone with the eggs and continues his fast while his mate goes off to sea to feed. Now it's November. The sea ice is breaking up and she does not have far to walk for her food. Perhaps a few hundred yards, rarely as much as 10 miles. The lone male does his best to protect the nest. Sometimes a blizzard will bury him completely in snow. At other times, thaw streams may pour right through, half covering the eggs with ice water. From the eggs, despite their drastic chilling, these eggs eventually hatched. The bird sheathbill and is a scavenger. The sheathbill is always on the lookout for unguarded eggs and will peck through the shell and eat the contents. And here are female penguins returning from sea 2.5 weeks later. These superb shots were filmed by John Ashton, an expedition member. This female has just returned from sea. She and her mate greet each other, and we see another display, the mutual display, so called because the birds face each other and sway their heads from side to side. This, by the way, is the nest relief ceremony, or what is popularly called changing the guard. The male appears reluctant to get off the eggs. And when he finally steps off, she takes over quickly, just in case one of those sheathbills is around to pilfer eggs. Notice how the male is holding himself stiffly. He looks as though he'd been on the nest for quite a while. You will remember that before the female went off to sea to break her fast, she collected stones to build up the nest. Now we see the male, with the least effort possible, performing the same duty. He just picks up the nearest stone and plunks it down beside her. In contrast, we have the energetic type, another male just relieved by his mate. A conspicuous 26 painted on his flipper for identification. And if you look very carefully, you'll see him steal a stone from a neighbor. Notice how fat the female is by contrast. It's the male's turn now to put on a little weight. Off he walks to the sea. This male has had nothing to eat since he first arrived over the sea ice at the beginning of the Antarctic spring. He spent about 3.5 weeks at the colony with his mate before the eggs were laid, and he has now completed a 2.5 weeks vigil alone over the eggs while she was feeding at sea. This makes a total of about 6 weeks without a bite of food. He appears tired. During his 6 weeks fast, his weight has gone down from 13 pounds to 7. He's lost about 40% of his body weight. He joins other males who have also been relieved by their mates. At the water's edge, they wait, but there may be a good deal of jostling before they make the final plunge. These slow motion shots show how the penguins swim. It's what's called porpoising. Each time they leap and skim the surface, they take a breath, and their speed has been estimated up to 30 miles an hour. And so they go their way to feed. The incubation period is about 35 days. Some days before the eggs hatch, the male returns to the nest. This allows the female to get away to sea again and bring back food in her stomach in readiness to feed the newly hatched chicks on predigested shrimp. She feeds by regurgitating. The parents now alternate. One must always be with the chicks, protecting them and keeping them warm, while the other is away at sea collecting food. They lie right on top of the chicks when the latter are very young. But later, as the chicks grow, the parents crouch over them. A colony of chinstrap penguins is alongside the Adelies, and they use the same paths. Notice the black line under its chin and its black cap. When the Adelie chicks are half grown, the chinstrap chicks are just hatching. The newly hatched chinstrap chick is still very weak. It begs for food, and the parent regurgitates. Elephant seals sometimes share the penguin community. These are the largest known seals, and males may weigh as much as 3 tons. They don't eat the penguins, but like to come ashore at this time and lie around on the rocks. If they choose to lie among penguin nests, there's very little a penguin can do but to bravely stand its ground. And perhaps give the seal a peck on the nose, there. In Dr. Sladen's researches, he attached the greatest to his birds right from the beginning of the season. Now this is how he did it. Perhaps a trifle humiliating for the penguin, but the best method of handling these very pugnacious creatures. A special metal band is fitted around the flipper. It will last a number of years, and it has an identification number and address stamped on it. Paint marks are, of course, temporary. They will wear off at sea, but they serve a good purpose in identifying individual birds at a distance. And there he goes, slightly nettled, but none the worse for his experience. Here is a marked family unit, the parent with a band and painted number, the chicks with red celluloid bands. The chicks are now 5 weeks old, and both parents are away at sea collecting food most of the time. Continuous guarding by the parents is over, and now the young group together in the so-called creche or nursery. Heretofore, it was believed that upon their return from feeding at sea, a parent would feed any chick on a first-come, first-served basis. But by marking these family units, Dr. Sladen was able to prove that even out of a crowd of 100 or more chicks, the parent recognized and fed its own chick. The chicks are waiting for their parents to return from sea. And here are the old birds arriving. Now let's see if there will be recognition between parent and offspring. And off they go. after her, the right chicks after the right mother. The parent will draw them away from the crowded creche. This is a feeding chase. Away from the creche, she gives them individual attention. And also gives them their fill. Young penguins seem to suffer at times from overfeeding. The chief enemy of the young Adelie at this stage of growth is the skua, a large brown gull-like bird. The easiest prey is the emaciated chick which has been maneuvered out of the safety of the creche by a skua. This is the fate of many, for the skuas have their own young ones to feed. Here's another weakling, almost certainly deserted by its parents. But watch how it faces up to the predator and actually hits back. Harried though this poor little chick may be, it puts up a bold front and gets back to safety in the creche, at least for the time. The parent penguins have different problems. Great waves crashing in late in the season make departure and landing a precarious business. And yet they must get food, or else their young will starve and fall ready prey to the skuas. Just swept in by the waves, and they struggle to get away the rocks. This Adelie in the surge is trying to get in with food for its young. And again it tries. And again. And a third time. It seems incredible that they can survive such battering. But there he is. He's made it. Up to the creche he goes. And watch how parent and chick recognize each other and run off for the feeding chase. The season is now drawing to a close. 9 weeks after hatching, the chicks are almost as big as their parents, but they still demand food. That's the chick on the left. This will be its last feeding by its parents. The old birds will return no more to the colony in this season. Now it's on its own, exercising its flippers. And after 1 or 2 days, it will walk off to join other chicks in sight of the sea, where they have many times seen their parents departing for the pack ice in search of food. And for the very first time, they plunge into the water, quite independently of their parents and with no preliminary lessons from them. What a contrast in swimming to the beautiful porpoising of the adults that we saw earlier. Lurking in wait for these unsuspecting youngsters is the leopard seal, the penguin's mortal enemy at sea. With a quick flash of the seal's head, the chick is skinned alive and swallowed. The skin floats up and is later gulped down by the hungry leopard seal. But plenty of young reach the feeding grounds in the pack ice, where they will rejoin the adults and soon be feeding for themselves. How beautifully adapted these Adelie penguins are to their environment of snow and ice. Here on the pack ice, at the edge of open water, the Adelie penguins remain during the long Antarctic winter. Far from land, they feed and sleep and quarrel, and here the young penguins of the past breeding season come to adulthood. Wintry winds sweep across the breeding grounds and the expedition's base on the South Orkneys. Only men, dogs, and a lone they'll remain, sure in the knowledge that when spring comes, the Adelie penguins will return.